Hey everyone, it's Thor with Creative Twilight. Today I wanted to talk about learning new painting techniques. It's something that can be overwhelming to new painters and veteran painters alike. So I figured the best way to do this would be to show some of my early work and show you the progression and how I learned to get better at my painting. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll start with some early commission work I was doing. When I first got into 40K, I was commissioned to do some work for one person in particular. I did a lot of D&D figures, as you'll see here. The thing you'll notice is there's nothing special about these. It's some basic layering, some highlighting, and some washing. So this is the base point where I started with painting. This isn't my earliest work, but this is before I started getting into learning to do some advanced techniques. The next model you see here is another commission piece I did. This was for somebody else, but again, very simple techniques, just basically base coat, highlight, and wash. Again, we all start at the same place. This was my work probably 8-9 years ago. So from here, this is kind of the last point before I started jumping into some more advanced techniques, which you're going to see. So now we have the Keeper of Secrets that I did. This was the first really large model I painted. Again, there's a lot of really simple techniques on here, but I decided I wanted to get better with painting. So the thing I did was I approached the sword, trying to do some object source lighting. It's hard to kind of make out in the shot, but you can see there's a little pink around the hilt of the sword where I was trying to show the glow reflecting off the sword. You'll also see I added some pink to the top of his head. The object source lighting is not very good. It's not blended. It's layered. It's not great, but this is where I started. And this is something I want to talk about, is that to get better, you have to choose to do it first, and then choose small parts of a model to work on. You don't start by wet blending an entire model at once. You choose an area to work on. So in my case, I decided object source lighting. I was going to work on the sword. The rest of the model was to the usual standard, but I tried to step it up a bit with the sword, as you can see here. It's not my best work, but we all, again, have to start somewhere. Now we move on to my Demon Prince Ghostwrath. This was shortly after I'd done the Keeper of Secrets, so I was kind of continuing on with the object source lighting. But you can see in the shoulders, I was trying to get a glow inside the shoulder as well as the sword, emitting the source and creating a light reflecting off the surrounding area. This was better work than the previous one. This is where I first started playing around with blending and doing some more serious object source lighting. Again, it's still not amazing, but I took small areas, the shoulders and the sword, small by comparison to the rest of the model anyway, and began working the advanced techniques. And from here, I just progressed, I got better, and you'll see that in some of the next work here. Here we have my Chaos Lord that I've named Soulgore. There wasn't anything really great on here, but again, you'll see a theme. I keep playing with weapons, because it's a small area you can work on that creates a nice focal point, so that it's not terribly overwhelming to do, but it looks great when you pull it off. So with this, the thing I was working on was trying to create sort of a fiery lava look on the weapon. I wish I had some better shots of this. This was way before I had had a good light box set up. But again, just working on small areas, getting more confident in the skill, and moving up from there. Now we have my Herald of Khorne. This model I'm really proud of. This was the first model where I basically took everything I learned and applied it to one model. It's the first model that I did fully blended. The sword, though I'd done a bunch of power weapons, which you'd seen, this was a new technique for me, was to create that split look that's so popular. That sword probably took me 4 hours to do. This model as a whole was probably damn near 40 hours. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. Again, I just took everything I learned and I applied it to one model, and I'm really happy with how this model came out. It still remains one of my favorite models I've done, even though I've painted so many more models since, and maybe even some that are better, just because this was my first sort of coming out with these advanced techniques. Now this Berzerker Champion's almost a bit of a step back. I don't paint everything to the same standard as that Herald of Khorne you saw. Like I said, that was kind of a showpiece. The Berzerker Champion is more what my typical models look like. Something I like to do with models is to create a focal point. The nice thing with it is you'll see the sword is it draws the eye to it. In doing so, it will pull the eye away from the fact that the rest of the work isn't so good, which is a really nice thing about creating focal points like that. The work on the sword is not as good as the work on the Herald of Khorne. I tried something new. It didn't come out as well, but it was a lot quicker, which is something else that you learn to do. Once you learn a technique, you can kind of learn a few shortcuts, so you can do the process quicker when you don't need to hold the same standard, and that's what this is a great example of. Now we have my Chaos Sorcerer Maelstrom. This was another model I tried to do blending on. The model as a whole, it didn't come out amazing, but it's not terrible. The big thing I tried to work on for a focal point was the staff, and to try to get this sort of fiery eye emitting a glow. Again, playing around with object source lighting and stuff. The other thing, unrelated to painting, was the basing. I learned to create the icicles, which I think came out pretty good. So this is just, again, another example in the long line of stuff I'm showing of where I just take small areas and kind of work and create something that's visually interesting, to just kind of make the model stand out. Since I'm going chronological, this is my Chaos Knight. The model after this is going to be a lot simpler, but again, since I'm just going kind of in order here. So the Chaos Knight was just, again, taking everything and applying it to a large model. This was the first really large model that I did any sort of blending on. It took me a lot of work because scaling things up isn't always as simple as it sounds. So that's why it's definitely great to start with something small, get confident with it, and then work on scaling it up. If I were to have tried to learn blending on this model to begin with, I'd have gotten nowhere, I'd have been disappointed, I'd probably have given up. But starting with the small stuff, getting confident, I was able to get to the level where I could do this knight. And I'm really proud of the work I did on this. You'll see there's the glow on the power weapon with the pink effect. That's kind of become a dominant feature with my army. Again, a lot of blending, highlighting, some heat staining on the weapon. Just putting everything together into the model, all the things I've learned, was what allowed me to create this model. So the last model is going to be my Chaos Predator. It's similar to the Knight in regards to what I was working on. I worked on blending across the entire model. It was the first tank I had done that on. I had also worked on the heat staining on the weapons, which was very similar to what I had done on the Knight, but I tried to play around with it a little more. And again, I know I keep pounding this home, but every time you work on a model, try something new, try something a little different, even if it's just mixing up the heat staining a little bit. Something small and simple, because eventually it'll add up, you'll find better techniques, and it'll all come together into something that you're really proud of. So I hope you've enjoyed the chat today. If you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to do more of these if people are interested in it. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Thanks.